he is Cixi's double nephew, both on the mom's side and on the dad's side, by marriage and also by blood. And so that's why Cixi actually she's an extremely intelligent woman. When she was trying to make a case for him, he didn't say Zai Tian is supposed to be emperor. She didn't say that. What she said was, Xianfeng has no descendants anymore, so we need to find him a descendant. And if you find a descendant, just like if you want to get a dog, right? You have two dogs to decide between a 6-year-old and a 2-month-old. You would choose a 2-month-old, right? You always choose, if you want to adopt a kid, you want to get someone as young as possible. So it's exactly the same logic. If we want a son, if Ci'an and I want another son, we don't want a son who's 18. We want a son who's younger, 3.5. And that's why he's going to be the new son of Xianfeng. Okay, so this is how he then became emperor. And the reason why I have to go so much into detail on this is because this is where all the problems then be. This is why actually so many problems from the Sino-Japanese War to the 100-Day Reform to the Boxer Rebellions. It's all because of the weird nature of him becoming emperor. Because A, it violates the rule that you have to go down one generation. And B, now it's weird because, okay, he is the son of Xianfeng, that's why he's the emperor. But that means Tongzhi now has no descendants. So it's very important because, as Chinese go, why do you need descendants so bad? It's because descendants are supposed to be feeding you, via all the sacrifices. So if you have no descendants, then you'll be basically an eternally hungry ghost. And so now Tongzhi is at risk of being an eternally hungry ghost. And that's why they say, they pledge that one day when Guangxu have kids, they will give one of the kids to him. That's why Puyi is then effectively his son. This is how it goes.
So the descendants not only, because I've always thought of the importance of descendants as being able to take care of elderly in retirement, which is maybe that's more of a modern.
It's much more modern. So it's
much more about the.
It's much more of the afterlife. Yeah, it's kind of like getting baptized. Yeah. So having a boy is kind of baptized. That's why you need a boy. And so when it was announced that he is the emperor, his father fainted. Actually, and there's no amount of cold ice bucket challenge to wake the guy up, and so he was actually taken back to his own home. And I think you can tell from his life, for the rest of his life, his father could tell that it's just going to be miserable because once he is in Forbidden City, he was basically a prisoner of his own home. And there's some stories, and these stories are usually very. These stories are very true because they come from his teacher's diary. It's called Weng Tonghe. Do you remember the guy who wouldn't give money to Li Hongzhang to pay for the fleet? So that guy, the guy who was in charge of the finances during the Sino-Japanese War, he was his teacher. He came number 1 in the exams, and so when he went to, so it's very sad. His boy, his mom couldn't come and see him. His wet nurse couldn't come and see him, and actually, allegedly, he had the eunuchs had to go out back to get his wet nurse for milk for Zai Tian, and nobody to play with. Ci'an and Cixi probably didn't care about him, and there's stories that no eunuch wanted to take care of him, and also Cixi thought that Tongzhi was not good as an emperor because she was way too lenient on him. So she's not going to make that mistake again with Zai Tian. And it's also easier because it's not her own, right? So whenever there's anything wrong, and then this is a 3.5-year-old kid, and he has to sit tight, during all these meetings and stuff. He would fiddle around. When he fiddled around or he moved around, it was physical punishment of kneeling in front of the ancestors for like hours upon hours, and also sometimes he had to skip a meal. And so there's one story where it's actually from a memoir of an old eunuch saying there's one day there was food missing in their quarters, and then he saw they saw a small person running around, and then so they were chasing, and it turned out it was Guangxu. He was so hungry that he stole like a piece of bread a mantou from the eunuch. So very, very sad. And then the first day that he went to the he went to school and went to school, and then so his personal tutor. It was Wang Tonghe, the finance minister, and then Wang. There are a lot of bad things that have been said about him. He's probably one of the reasons why China lost to the Sino-Japanese War. But one very good thing that he did was he was very diligent about writing his own diaries. That's why the whole meeting that I talked about, the great thing is because it's actually straight direct resources. He was at the meeting. And so when he wrote the diary, the entry, the day that he saw little Emperor Guangxu, he was like, Emperor was very thin and shorter than the kid of his age. So very obviously malnutrition, the symptom of malnutrition. But he was extremely, extremely diligent. So he is very different from his older cousin. He was very diligent. But it's actually very sad. It's like, because he was like, it's like, maybe if I'm diligent, then he called Cixi, Qing Baba, my actual dad. That's the term. Don't ask why. But so his name is called actual dad. If actual daddy would not shout at me, or would not skip a meal of mine if I studied harder. And then he always suddenly asked, like, when's mommy coming back? So it's like a 5-6-year-old kid. And then sometimes he would be studying and he would just like faint on the table because of low blood sugar levels. And so you have to say, like, there's no way this is like the emperor of China, right? But as far as good evidence, eyewitness good evidence is concerned, this is pretty good. But as he grew up, Guangxu, and that's why a lot of it you can tell from his personality. He was very frightened of Cixi, his actual daddy. So this one time, a kid, he was studying. He probably didn't listen to Professor Wang. So Wang is the emperor, so you cannot hit him. You cannot shout at him, right? You cannot yell at him. So he was like, if you do this again, I will tell your actual daddy. And Guangxu just flipped out and ran out of the building, and somebody had to drag him back. And so Wang was like, this is bad. Like, what I'm going to do? I can't hit him. I can't yell at him. I can tell his parents, what do I do? So, okay, I'll do the only thing I could do, which is whenever we get into a brawl, I'll just stare at him. So Wang and Guangxu would have this staring contest. They would stare at each other. And like 15 minutes later, Wang, his eyes were a little bit tired. So he looked down and he looked back up. And then the little emperor was still staring at him. So you could tell, he like the personality-wise, Guangxu was quite weak. Or I always said he was weak. He was scared of the Empress Dowager. But at the same time, he was also a very strong personality. Probably because he is the nephew of Cixi, probably runs in the blood. His mom was actually a very stubborn person too. So stubborn that sometimes she actually fought with Cixi, and obviously Cixi would have none of that. So Cixi did the biggest punishment that a sister could do to each other. She provided an additional concubine for her husband. So this is the Empress Dowager. And so the Empress Dowager, so throughout the years, as years went by, he was getting older, and we came to the point where it's in 1881, Ci'an suddenly died. A lot of people say Cixi poisoned her. There's absolutely no evidence for that, but 1881, she died. In 1884, if you remember, that was the year when the Chinese fought a war with France, and in the beginning it didn't go so well. So Cixi used that opportunity to move Yixin down. So he's out in 1884. But you remember back, I was saying the late Qing power DNA. The most important thing is that within the Daoguang descendants, there's somebody in charge. So Cixi rose Yixuan up, Chun Qingwang up. Because he's dead by and he's actually, we'll go into him later. It's actually his sons that caused the Boxer Rebellion, but he was never involved too much in politics. So he was the only guy left who was in charge, and he's the father of the emperor, so he's got all the rights. So we come to the year 1885. 1881 was a very interesting year because that's the year when Guangxu turned 14. 14 was a very special year because his older descendants, the first emperor to be ruling in Beijing, Shunzi, and also the great Sunzhi, and also the great emperor Kangxi, both became emperors when they were 5 or 6, and they took power when they were 14. And they got married at 14 as well. So everybody was saying, and China, like, everybody always has like this weird, or very, maybe correctly so, that the Empress Dowager had all the power. She could do whatever she wanted, but that is not true. China has always been ruled by the whole political and bureaucratic system. And within the bureaucratic system, they all studied Confucius. If they all studied Confucius, they were like, he's 14, just like Kangxi when he took over the policies. That's why he should get married and take over. Okay? So a lot of people talking about that. And then suddenly there was this one guy that says, no way, do not let him come back. Guess who said that? Who came up to say that? There's one person that just like, he came up so strongly, so enthusiastically.
What do you mean come back?
Like this, so like a huge comeback on the guys who recommended that Guangxu took back power. It's one guy that really refuted it or that went against it.
His uncle? No, one of
His dad, right?
His own dad.
Oh, yeah.
His own dad. And then the second guy who came up even stronger. Wang. So he was actually, and then Wang said he was actually very depressed. Because not only did his father stop him from getting power, but he also spent all his time on building. So this goes back to the Sino-Japanese War. To build the Navy Department and started funneling the money to build the Summer Palace. That started in 1885, right? Remember what I said? It's all Yishuan. It's all Prince Chun's fault. Put all the money in, and then so Guangxu is like, hey, like I'm your son. Like I'm so glad that you're back. You're in charge. You're supposed to be helping me to get power. Why the hell are you like spending all the money and time and everything into building the Summer Palace? It's because, actually, you could say, I have to say, this is really first-hand evidence of fatherly love. Because he knew he has absolutely no basis or not enough power base to take back power from Cixi, who at that point in time has already ruled China or at the helm for 23 years. So what did he do instead? He was building Summer Palace. So that Cixi would be happy. Why would she be happy? Because Summer Palace was the time when she was young, and that's when she had her one and only and early romantic encounter with Sanfeng, and who then in the romantic encounter then created the Tongzhi Emperor, right? So she has always wanted to rebuild the Summer Palace, but Prince Gong would have none of that. In 1864 and 74 didn't allow it. 1884, if this brother-in-law didn't, this brother-in-law was more than happy to oblige. Mainly because the son was held hostage by the Empress Dowager. And so the one thing is, okay, I make sure that you're happy with the Summer Palace, and B, once I build it, you move in. That means Forbidden City is now my son's, and so my son will then take over. So he is too young to understand that his dad was the proverbial boiling the frog with cold water, then warm water, then. So he tried to do it step by step. So I always say, like, once you know the story behind, it's always more than just the site. So next time you go back to the Summer Palace, you go to Yiheyuan. One level to look at it is the corrupt lifestyle of Cixi, and use all this money that you could have built at least 2 more of the Beiyang fleet to fight the Japanese. Didn't happen. But on the other angle, the Summer Palace was also a very personal statement of fatherly love, which goes back to here. Personal and core, always above the regime and China.
How old is Princess Xixi at this time?
The Empress Dowager? Empress Dowager, 50. So in 1885 she was around 50, or 51 by Chinese. She was born in 1835. And so it's building, but then you still couldn't help it because Guangxu grows, right? Like he grew. So by 1889 he was 19, still unmarried, And for that would have been like, that's outrageous. That's like a 50-year-old guy not married these days. Like the average age of getting married is around 13 or 14. So it's time to get married. When it's time to get married, choose who to be the empress and the concubines, and how does it work? It works something like this. At the Qing Dynasty, there were the banner people. The banner people were basically people who helped with the creation of the empire. So obviously, the banner people would have Manchurian banners. The Manchurian banner would be the main banners. Then you have the Mongolian banners, and some of the Han banners. Han would be the more regular Chinese, so to speak. And so these banner people, the daughters from 13 to 17, would have to go through this kind of beauty pageant situation of like the first round, second round, or the semifinals, finals, and then there'll be unlike the beauty pageant, they were not allowed to put makeup. So the final round, and so finally there were a few girls. One of them is the viceroy of Jiangxi. Of Jiangxi province. Very pretty girl. And then also a pair of sisters whose father was as like a deputy head of the Department of Manners. Two girls. And then a final girl, 21. Now a 21-year-old woman who was not married by then would that's like a 60-year-old maid, and she was not pretty. And so there were a few girls. And then what they did back then was, if the emperor was to choose the empress, they would have something called the Ru Yi, which is shaped a little bit like this. It's supposed to be just an article of decoration, but I think originally it's like a back scratcher. It's called Ru Yi, actually means as you wish. So I think it goes very apt for a back scratcher. So whoever the emperor gives the jade Ru Yi, the back scratcher, would be the empress, and then whoever got like two little like sacks, like nice silk sacks, would be the concubines, and whoever got 50 taels of silver is basically say, thank you, this is the amount of money that it probably took you to come to Beijing. Thank you, you can go home. And so the few girls, the emperor was very happy. He was holding his Ru Yi, and he was going towards the Xing, so the pretty girl going to pretty girl. As he was going to the pretty girl with the Ru Yi, suddenly he heard a loud voice back, "Emperor!" And then Emperor Guangxu looked back, and then the Empress Dowager went like this, as in give it to the not so pretty girl, like the 21-year-old girl. And so it was like, why? Why would the Empress Dowager want him to give it to the 21-year-old girl? And this is the reason. Because the 21-year-old girl is actually Cici's brother's daughter.